So every year, IFS release their trends and predictions for our key focus industries. Today, I'm joined here by Kenny Ingram and Chris Knight to explore our construction and engineering predictions in more detail and what they mean for the industry. So Kenny, you predict that 20% of companies will execute plans within the next 4 years to have more robust, timely, and accurate financial control and governance processes and systems. So what is driving the increased focus on improving project financial control?
Okay, thanks Ryan. Yeah, I think it's no great secret we're facing quite tough economic times out there today. I mean, obviously we've got inflation running high, we've got recessions hitting many of the economies today, and of course supply chain problems that we're all aware of. But even before we had these issues, the construction sector was suffering from low project margins. So I think there's never been a time when companies are under more pressure to get good information, accurate financial information.
How do companies handle this today then?
I guess it varies, but I guess in general, when we speak to lots of companies, I would say badly is probably a good answer. What we see out there is most organisations are running the business systems with what I call a patchwork quilt of different business systems. And that means basically many different systems and also an excessive use of Excel spreadsheets, which is not good. And what does this mean? It basically means it's very inefficient, slow to produce information, inaccurate, and also open to manipulation, because if you're using Excel, people can change the numbers. And of course, that might not be what people want to see at the top of the organisation. What else? It's hard and impossible to analyse the information because you can't really drill down to the source data. The data is probably out of date because it takes time to collect all the information through these collection of different business systems. And it's not really therefore trusted by a lot of people in the organisation. And fundamentally then, that means that we have uninformed decision making, and that can be potentially very dangerous and have serious consequences.
What can companies do to gain better control?
Okay, I think we need to have a more integrated approach, and what that means in my mind is joining 3 areas together into one integrated solution. One would be accounting. We obviously need very solid world-class accounting at the heart of this. And for construction businesses, that needs to be very project-centric, things like project accounting, and also typically needs to manage multiple entities and companies to be able to consolidate those organisations. But what else? That needs to be integrated with the source transactions. And what I mean by that is, where do the costs come from? They come from procurement of materials and other types of procurement. They come from subcontract, it comes from plant and equipment, and it comes from labour costs, of course. So we need those source transactions to be integrated. But most importantly, I would say we need to have proper control of commercial and project cost control processes, and that needs to be fully integrated as well. So what we mean by that is things like contract management, things like contract change, things like estimating and bid management, things like risk and opportunity management, for example, and maybe even things like project cash forecasting. So really bringing all of those 3 worlds together in an integrated platform.
What are the benefits of taking this action?
The benefit means we'll regain control of our business. We'll have accurate information that we can rely on to make informed decisions making on our business. We'll need to minimise project and business risk. And fundamentally that means obviously better profitability on our projects and better business profitability. So that's really what we're trying to achieve here.
So Chris, you predict that 30% of companies will change their construction processes to a more industrialised construction model by 2025. Let's start with what is industrialised construction?
So industrialised construction is all about the processes that are used both on and off-site, and transitioning from traditional old construction approaches to align with other industries where significant benefits have been achieved by standardisation of the approach, but also driving efficiencies. So maybe I should put that in context a little bit in terms of some examples. So if you think about digital design options, being able to take a 3D model that's inputted to by various different disciplines involved in that design process, making sure they get it right first time before they do anything on site, identifying where there are clashes of components or design issues, for instance. Another example could be standardisation of platforms. So think about assemblies of parts and components that are brought together off-site, reducing time and wastage on site, but potentially requiring less people to do that work and pay. You could expand that even further. Maybe another example of manufacturing and site assembly. So think about commonality between systems within buildings. So many parts and different sectors can be brought together to a design standard and then form just about any structure of any building, if that makes sense. Maybe a final example would just be to think about more emphasis on the supply chain, so part numbering, for instance, inventory management, the greater control and management of many aspects of the material packages, the subcontract labour, your own direct employed labour, and also the equipment used on site.
So why do we need it?
Okay, so in construction there's some really long challenges that haven't really changed in probably 20 years. For instance, productivity. Productivity in construction compared to manufacturing, maybe in the last year, we could take an example. The difference between the two has been measured by analysts to show that you could, in terms of earned value, generate 1.6 trillion additional dollars. But then you could add in the things that we're all facing at the moment in terms of global financial pressures. You could think about inflation, availability of people, prices increases, the availability of materials, subcontract, labour and equipment. If you put on top of that the difference in terms of the age of the workforce out on site, many people are retiring from the traditional industry and leaving, and we're not seeing that being replaced with younger people in the industry. So that's generating a wider skills gap. So there's a lack of labour that's been estimated, again by analysts, to exceed 1 million workers by 2025.
What could this mean for construction companies around the globe?
So for many construction companies, they know they have to transition to the industrialisation of these processes to drive performance and succeed in the future and attract themselves to new clients. So the reality is that not all companies can do all of that in one go, obviously, so they're thinking about generating potentially a hybrid model. So taking traditional business processes with additional processes, maybe some of the ones I've mentioned, like the integration of BIM, for instance, maybe thinking about using those structured work packages or a combination of, but then driving the success gradually over the years to become the type of construction company that they want to be in the future.
Kenny, you're predicting that companies are recognising the need to move to what IFS call a common operating platform to improve their business performance. So what is a common operational platform?
Okay, common operational platform. Basically, it's an integrated business system, but focused on the operational processes of a business rather than the whole business. The goal here is really just to simplify the landscape, get away from having lots and lots of different business systems, but importantly having a common set of processes across the business and getting away from having every project running with a different set of business processes. And I say the last point I'd like to make is that it needs to be repeatable and predictable.
And what does the current business system landscape look like, and how does ERP fit in it?
Okay, again, in most organisations I speak to in construction, we have a similar landscape. It's what I call a patchwork quilt. Lots and lots and lots of different business systems, incompatible data structures, incompatible technologies, and unfortunately lots and lots and lots of Excel spreadsheets, which is not great. ERP. Well, ERP in construction for a lot of organisations is seen as a finance system only, which again is really not meant to be what ERP is meant to be about, and it certainly doesn't address the operational requirements of the business. So moving forward from there, what we're now seeing is the evolution of more mature construction-centric ERP solutions. And of course, they're addressing not just the finance area and the HR area, but the operational parts of the business as well. So this is really where we need to try and get to, is a more construction-centric ERP platform. Of course, some will say, well, I've already invested in my ERP platform, a financial system, particularly the tier 1 organisations, and maybe they don't want to throw that investment away. That's also fine. What we can do there is see the OSP, the Operational Solution Platform, as being complementary to the ERP solution and can sit alongside it and be complementary.
So Chris, what is driving this transition?
So to Kenny's points, talking about that operational performance, I think in terms of trying to get that excellence in project delivery, it's all about some of the pure fundamentals that we're all familiar with. It's about delivering projects on time, on budget, to the right quality, safely. And the industry has really struggled with this. The project needs to be run, or tends to be run in a different way depending on individuals' preferences. So certainly in my experience, a project will be run by an individual who like their own processes, they like their own reports, they like the systems that they use for that particular project. That makes it very difficult to drive repeatability and get a consistent project and overall business performance. And it's virtually impossible to learn lessons and drive continuous improvement when you're operating that way.
What are the benefits of an OSP?
So wanting to implement those standardised processes, comes with the need to have a standardized project templated approach in relation to the solution that you're using. So what that means is companies are now able to accelerate the trend to simplify that landscape by using that business solution, facilitating and implementing repeatable processes, making sure we've got a standard approach, making sure we've got standard data structures, making sure we don't start with that blank sheet of paper, you know, the patchwork quilts that Kenny mentioned earlier on. Making sure we've got that approach that starts out of the box for every simple project is a vital ingredient in achieving improved project and overall business performance.